Okay, so what if I told you there's a guide, a 2,400-year-old guide to winning that war that rages inside you pretty much every day? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into here. We're looking at Plato's incredible framework for not just understanding, but actually mastering our own inner conflicts.
I mean, you know this feeling, right? It's that classic battle. Part of you is like, I should totally hit the gym, while another part is screaming, no way, let's just stay on the couch and order a pizza. Or maybe you know you've got to study, but your phone is just right there begging you to scroll. It's this constant, relentless tug of war between what you want, what you feel, and what you think you should be doing.
And you know what? This feeling, it is not a new thing. It's not some modern invention. For the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, this internal battle was one of the most fascinating and, really, one of the most fundamental problems of just being human. He literally saw it as a war that every single one of us has to fight within ourselves. So for Plato, this really was the big question. How in the world do we get a handle on our own self-interest, on our own desires? Because let's be real, if you can't even manage yourself, how can you possibly hope to build a good life? Forget about building a just society. And that's a question that's just as real and relevant today as it was way back in ancient Athens.
Okay, so how did Plato suggest we navigate all this inner chaos? Well, this is the cool part. He didn't just point out the problem and say, good luck. No, he actually drew us a map. He gave us a model of the human soul to help us really see the different forces that are at play inside us. He called it the tripartite soul. And right away, it's super important to get this next part right. When he says tripartite, or three parts, he doesn't mean the soul is literally sliced up like a pie. Not at all. He's talking about three different functions, or maybe three different levels of activity that are all constantly interacting within one single unified soul.
So what are they? Okay, here we go. First up, you've got the intellect. That's your reason, your logical mind. Second, there's the spirited element. And think of this like your inner fire, your spunk, your drive, that sense of honor or indignation. It's not about ghosts or anything supernatural. And third, you have the appetitive element. This is the big one. It covers all your desires, your wants, your cravings for food, drink, money, you name it.
And this is where it gets so fascinating. Plato didn't just leave these as abstract ideas. He physically mapped them onto the body. He placed the intellect, your reason, right up in the head. And its highest virtue, its goal, is wisdom. Then you've got the spirited element, right here in the chest, where you feel your heart pounding with pride or anger, and its virtue is courage. And finally, the appetites. He links those to the stomach and the gut, and their ideal virtue is temperance, or just good old self-control.
Okay, to make all of this really stick, to make it crystal clear, Plato came up with one of the most brilliant and famous metaphors in the history of philosophy. Seriously, it's the allegory of the chariot, and it just perfectly illustrates that inner war we've been talking about. So picture this. Your soul is a chariot, and holding the reins, trying to steer this thing, is the charioteer. That's your reason, your intellect. The charioteer's whole job is to steer the entire system, to give it direction, and to guide it toward what's true and what's good. Now, pulling this chariot isn't easy because you've got a team of two very different horses. The first one, he's a noble horse. He's well-behaved, powerful. This horse represents your spirited element, that drive, that energy, that sense of honor. It actually wants to listen to the charioteer. It wants to do the right thing. But then there's its partner. And this horse is a total mess. It's unruly, it's disobedient, it's wild. This, of course, is your appetitive side, all those raw desires and passions. This horse doesn't care about the good or the true. It's constantly trying to bolt off in its own direction, chasing whatever shiny thing catches its eye in the moment. It's always threatening to drag the whole chariot right off the road into a ditch. And that powerful image, man, it just captures everything, doesn't it? For Plato, this is life. It's this constant struggle. It's you, the charioteer, trying to guide these two incredibly powerful opposing forces. It's your own personal quest for the good. So if every single one of us is driving this chaotic chariot, the big question is, how do we keep it on the road? How do we actually win this war? Well, again, Plato doesn't just leave us with the problem, he gives us a clear strategy, a game plan for how to steer. And it all comes down to establishing a proper chain of command inside yourself. It's actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, reason, the charioteer, must be in charge. It has to be the one guiding the way. Step 2, your spirited element, that noble horse, has to provide the energy and the courage to actually follow reason's directions. And step 3, together, the charioteer and the noble horse have to work as a team to control and discipline that wild, unruly horse of your appetites.
And when you get that right, when all three parts of your soul are working together in harmony, with each part doing its proper job, Plato has a very special word for that state. He calls it justice. And for him, justice wasn't just some big, abstract social concept about laws and courts. It was the ultimate personal virtue. It was a state of inner balance, harmony, and integrity.
But Plato goes even one level deeper than that because he realized something absolutely crucial. Just knowing the right path isn't enough to make the charioteer actually steer correctly. Think about it. There has to be some kind of powerful motivation, a why behind it all. And this is such a profound insight. At the end of the day, we humans are moved most by what we love. You can know intellectually that you should go to the gym, but until you learn to genuinely love the feeling of being healthy and strong, it's always going to be a struggle. Your reason doesn't just need knowledge, it needs love. It needs a powerful motivation. So Plato actually talks about two different kinds of love that can pull our chariot. First, you have eros. This is desire love. It's about wanting something for yourself. And sure, this can pull you toward base appetites, but it can also pull you toward higher ideals. But the real game changer is philia. This is friendship love. It's about loving something for its own sake, purely, not for what you can get out of it. And this is the philo in philosophy, the love of wisdom itself. So the ultimate goal for Plato, the thing that truly fuels the charioteer, is to reach a state he calls contemplative wonder. This isn't just about logically analyzing the good. It's about being so completely captivated by its beauty that you can't help but pursue it. It's about delighting in it, pondering it, just being filled with a sense of total awe. The philosopher Arthur Holmes told a story that just describes this feeling perfectly. He talked about being on a troop ship at night during World War II. Standing on the top deck, looking up at this vast, starless sky, and just being filled with sheer, absolute amazement. Just wonder. That feeling of awe, that's what Plato believes we should learn to feel for the good itself. So, there you have it. Plato's 2,400-year-old framework brings us right back to where we started, inside ourselves. It gives us a map of our own soul, and it gives us a mission to let our reason guide, to harness our inner drive, and to fuel the whole journey with a deep, genuine love for what is good. And that leaves us with one final, very personal question to think about. If your soul really is a chariot, where are you steering it?